Good afternoon. Can you recall what we were discussing about cargo work in last class? No, you cannot recall what we were talking about in the last class cargo work. Okay, because I am taking three topics: cargo work, meteorology, safety and bridge keeping, uh, emergency, etc. So it is essential that you recall different ways.
फिर ये कर देते हैं बल्क कैरियर कर देते हैं
Okay,
डेट्रीमेंटल बल्क कैरियर के उसके बाद आपने हाई डेंसिटी उस पर बताया था क्या क्या कॉजेज है
okay. Yeah, very right, Amit, very right. Good for you to recollect. So what we will do is we'll continue with that to wind it up. So let me start since recollection has been made and we are now on the same page. Very categorically, just for a recap, we had considered first the construction of the hold, then we started how structural failure due to various reasons can happen. And I told you that there is a question which will get repeated, which is to say what factors are detrimental in causing harm, factors attributed to improper loading, incorrect use of gear, shore gear and ship's gear, which can harm the structure of the bulk carrier. That was the question and the preview. So we had started and we were discussing this part, potential problems, for which I'm very sure that you've understood that you have to make a certain note. You can write later on, but potential problems, we start, then you make the note. Number one, deviations from loading manual. You have a loading manual, you are aware of it, loading manual. Now, if you deviate and exceed permissible limits from the approved loading plan or loading manual, you can have failures in the structure because of overloading, overstressing rather, not overloading, overstressing, which is exceeding limits under SWSF, still water shearing force, and SWBM, still water bending moment. Now you must have worked with the chief officer on board to see the look at lubricator, and now you're going to do it yourself as chief officers. So tell me, as a recall, when you use the lubricator, what kind of stresses tell you, what types of stresses it tells you, or results given by the lubricator, the type of results for moments, bending moments or shear force. How many kind of results you get?
सिर्फ वो
Anji, say again. See, two kind of results normally. You can have harbor stresses and ocean going, right? Harbor stresses will be definitely in the same condition, will be lesser than ocean going stresses. So which one should you use for correlating or coming to a conclusion? Which one, harbor or ocean going? You have two results. I'm sure you can recall. One caption is harbor going stresses. So many percentage shear force, so many percentage bending moment, harbor going, which means in still water inside the harbor. And then you have what is also called ocean going stresses. So which one should you use actually? You are in port, you are loading. Which one you should use?
Sea going stresses.
Sea going. Okay. Have you got a reason for it? I agree with you, but have you
No,
got a
sir.
reason?
At the end of the day, we have to sail out in the sea.
Right. Yes, you have to.
So that's why we need to consider those first.
Mhm.
Sir, there will be many dynamic forces acting on ship's hull. That's why we are considering seagoing.
But you are in port.
Yes, sir, but that is the time when the ship's hull will experience maximum stresses during the sea passage.
Right. So while calculating, I'm just interacting with you. You are absolutely right, but I'm interacting with you. If you take harbor going stresses while you are loading or drawing up a plan, then of course, when you go out at sea, you will consider ocean going stresses. So the question comes, which one should you use even in harbor? Which you are right, should be ocean going. But what I'm interested is in a good reason. You have given some reasons, but I'm looking for something else. Why should you always consider OG, ocean going stresses, and not harbor going stresses? If that is the case, why harbor going stresses are mentioned in the loading table?
वो ज़्यादा होंगे ना
कौन से?
ओशन गोइंग स्ट्रेसेस
Yes, ज़्यादा होंगे.
तो पेपर साइड के लिए वो बेटर है ना उससे कंसिडर करें सर
हाँ, ठीक है. But there's one more thing I want to stress here. See, at any given time,
सर
you are in port. हाँ जी बोलिए, sorry, बोलिए.
सर इसमें बस वही था कि लाइक सर इन पोर्ट वी नीड टू कैलकुलेट एट दैट टाइम ऑफ इंस्टेंट कि लाइक अभी कितना है तो उसके लिए बट इवेंचुअली एज वी विल बी गोइंग टू द सी so we have to pre-plan that what will be the extra forces will be there, so we have to calculate on that basis also.
Okay.
Yeah, but in case if they wanted to know what is the current happening on board at the port, what is actual stress is happening, that for that thing we need to see the port condition also, the port stresses, the at port stresses. Is it?
Actually, क्या हो रहा है कि you are in port, you are loading. Okay, very nice, fine. You are keeping port or harbor stresses in control. That is also okay. But the fact remains that the vessel should be able to sail out at any given time to ocean.
Yes, sir. We should be seaworthy at all the time. We need to have
For
that.
which reason you will have to keep in view ocean going stresses. They should be always under control. So at any given time, if you are told to move out to sea, you are in perfect order.
Sir, so for that basis, sir, we need to calculate the two. We have to keep the two things. Like in port, what max we can go, and for the ocean, at what max we can go.
Right.
Yeah, so we correlate in that also. But if somebody asks at the port, what is the stress is happening, then we can show him by that, like with that option that right now this is the forces. And with respect to that, if I go outside, my forces will be this, so I cannot load or I have to like interpolate in between that so that in the eventually in the out cases when I will go on the ocean, I will be under control at all the time.
Correct. And also, if in case by weather deteriorating or some reason you are asked to move out to sea, you are still under control because you have kept OG, ocean going stresses, under control. So you can be ordered to go out at sea, you can be told to move out at sea for any reason, but you do not have any issue because you have kept the ocean going stresses under control. In fact, you should be always in a position, I'm talking about stresses, etc. You should be always in a position to move out to sea at a short notice. At that point of time, when you are told to move out to sea, at that point of time, you cannot start calculating ocean going stresses. They might be far too much to be controlled now. So you will correlate by taking ocean going stresses as the primary thing to make sure that you are always ready to proceed to sea. And as somebody remarked, finally you have to be at sea. So one thing you can note down potential problems with deviation from the loading manual, which is to calculate and avoid any overstressing of local structural members by finding shear forces and bending moments in control. This should not be exceeded. The permissible limits should not be exceeded, which is given in your loading manual. As you are aware, at least in ship you can always come back and say it has given some examples, condition 1, condition 2, condition 3, which is normal. Every ship you will carry like this, and then you have examples of different scenarios and calculations based on drafts, bending moments, shear forces, drafts, etc., including FSC for every condition, GM solid, GM fluid, everything is given. So you will consult the loading manual and you will load according to that loading manual. Any deviation from it is one of the causes, is one of the potential problems which can cause structural failure or structural deformation. So I am sure that you're noting it down. Number 1, deviation from loading manual. Number 2, going on, shallow draft loading. Now this is also relatively easy to understand. You are loading in a shallow draft condition. Shallow draft. I'm not saying you are aground. You are loading in a shallow draft condition. Now, upthrust provided by the buoyancy force is going to be less because the draft itself is less. So upthrust onto the bottom will be less. This is going to cause or could cause some overstressing of the keel structure because your upthrust is less. You are in shallow water. So this also has to be considered to a certain extent that this can impose high stresses in the double bottom, cross decks, transverse bulkhead structures. So you should be, correlating this and taking into account that presently you are in shallow water. So how much should be the stresses permissible? That will be what we say point number 2. We are looking at potential problems which can cause harm. High loading rates, very, very important. High loading rates, very common problem. Because as you are aware, charterers, cargo owners, the users of the terminal, even terminal, cargo foremen, terminal operators, they all want the vessel to finish ASAP. So they insist on very high loading rates. So this can also cause significant damage. If not, it can lead to structural failure. If not right now, it can perpetually, it can lead to it. You see, repeated high loading rates have been a cause of loss of bulk carriers in many places, especially capesizers. The bending moments, when are they maximum? Bending moments, let us say in a scenario of loading, you are loading heavy density cargo. So in what locations when you are loading, you will have the maximum bending moments?
So it depends, like if we are
So
loading to the first and last hole, then the bending moment can be more, or if we are loading to the center only, then also the bending moment can be more.
Okay, now you are absolutely right, but what can I can just fine tune it. Ends of the ship, give rise to maximum bending moments. So if you are loading, let us say on a 9 hatch bulk carrier, you are loading number 1 and number 9. This can lead to excessive bending moments. Not that other places you will not have bending moments, but ends, forehand, your aft end, or maybe if you are having ballast like this can lead to high stresses, bending moments. So what you should do is you should take care. You are calculating and you're making a plan of loading. So you should plan in accordance that bending moments are not exceeded, just because charterers are insisting that minimum shifts of the cargo conveyor belt should be done. And of course, if the loading rate itself is being exceeded rather than following the agreed upon, then also you are going to have a concern, because the loading rate should be synchronized with the deballasting rate. Many times it has happened and will continue to happen because synchronization of loading and deballasting is not achieved. Ballast pumping capacity could be low, and then loading rate is high. This can lead to discrepancy or structural damage. Ideally, it should match. It should get synchronized. Loading rate and the deballasting rate. It cannot be point to point. It cannot be exactly, but so far as possible, it should be synchronized. And then, of course, if this thing is happening, synchronization nahi hai, your loading rate is higher than your deballasting rate, which is normally the case, then you want to stop. You want to stop for some time because you want to take time to deballast. And this can lead to off-hire. You know how you do it practically? How do you buy time? If I can use the word buy time.
Buy time means sir, मतलब?
I'm looking at a scenario कि loading rate तो अपने हिसाब से चल रहा है. Just assuming, let us say 5,000 metric tons per hour का loading rate है. 2 shoots हैं. 2 shoots, 2,500 each. So you're loading at 5,000 tons per hour, metric ton per hour. But your deballasting capacity is, let us say, 2,500 tons per hour. Full capacity means rated capacity है तुम्हारे blast pump की, क्योंकि of course उससे कम होगी, practically कम होगी. लेकिन चलो मान के चलते हैं कि बहुत efficiency है, वो जो तुम्हारी rated capacity उससे तुम deblast कर रहे हो, तो इसे unsynchronized हो गया ना. You're loading at
Yes, sir.
5,000, you're deballasting at 2,500.
Yes, sir.
So this is going to cause stresses.
Yes, sir.
So इसके लिए मैं कह रहा था कि अगर आप बोलोगे कि नहीं रोक दो, लोडिंग रोक दो, अगर आप ये बोलते हो शो टर्मिनल को कि स्टॉप द लोडिंग, then what happens? Obviously the charterer, the cargo owner, they will, and the terminal, they will come in between and say that you are put off hire because you cannot match. Your owner had promised a deballasting rate of so much, but you are not achieving it, so you go off hire, which means money.
Yes, sir.
तो इसके लिए मैं अब कह रहा था कि practically how do you take care of this practically? Not to be written in an answer, but it can be done in one way. You know how? Every bulk carrier will have a system of draft survey. A topic we will take up. Do numerical of it. Draft survey के लिए रोक दो. When you see, and this I am talking practicality, समझे? Practical. When you see that something is going wrong, loading rate and deballasting rate is not matching, you want some time to deblast, then what you do is you stop for draft survey. In fact,
Sir,
what you do is in your loading plan only, somewhere in between you say stop for intermediate draft survey. Now that draft survey is going to take a good 2 hours. This is going to buy you time to do whatever blast which is stuck.
Sir.
Hanji?
Sir, for that thing also, we need to give a strong reason that why we wanted to do a draft survey in between the cargo operation.
That is allowed. That is allowed. You are doing a draft survey, intermediate draft survey, for the reason to ascertain that loading rate and calculation of cargo is going according to the plan. That is okay. That is allowed.
So, okay.
That is
Okay.
normally accepted. बहुत ही कोई
Okay.
stringent charter होगा, he is the only one who is going to make noise, but normally it is an accepted fact that you do stop for intermediate draft survey. In fact,
Because
हाँ बोलिए बोलिए.
because sir, वैसे मैंने तो बहुत टाइम पहले किया था, like I have done in cadetship only. But
Okay.
sir, वो like in between, if we tell them to stop for a draft survey, they can say most of the time they say नहीं नहीं सही हो रहा है, that everything is going fine, it's slow, we can slow down, we can do it little bit, but don't stop it for some period of time.
Chetan, there is
Sir.
one thing I'm telling you which you have missed out. You have drawn a loading plan,
Yes sir.
right? Loading
Yes.
plan में लिखा हुआ है. Let us say it is a 9 hatch bulk carrier. You have loaded 1, 5, 7, and then you have written stop for draft survey, intermediate draft survey. It
Yes,
is not something you just come up. It is there in the loading plan.
Okay, sir, because then it means when we are sending the documentation and when the terminal is sending the documentation, we can work out on that time also that what is the loading rate they are providing, as they already give, that what will be the loading plan and what will be the hour blasting capacity. So we can cross check at that time only that how much time it's gonna take for the loading and how much time we have for the deblasting operations. So we can enter that thing in our loading plan only, that in after doing a half of the hatches we will be go for an intermediate survey, right sir? Is that it?
वो तो करना ही है आपने.
Okay.
You are drawing up a loading plan. तो उसमें होगा included. आपने किस basis पे किया है चेतन? Loading plan किस basis पे बनाया है? You have got a loading rate.
Yes sir.
How many conveyors are being used?
Sir,
You
two
got
sir.
a loading rate, right? एक
Yes
मिनट.
sir.
Can you say पहले मैं कर लूँ. You have got a loading rate which has been provided to you by the terminal. So, having worked out your loading rate, having been given the loading rate, and now you know your debelasting rate, then you work out कि आपका load plan होगा क्या. When you have worked out the loading plan, which includes debelasting, you have worked out the drafts at each stage, each pore you have worked out the drafts, you have worked out also the SFBM at each stage, right? That is the loading plan. आपने बना लिया वो. अब आपने वो सबमिट कर दिया कार्गो फोरमैन को या टर्मिनल को कि ऐसे चलेगा. In which you have incorporated, let us say somewhere in the middle, you have written a legend, stop for intermediate draft survey. You are not coming up with a draft survey at random. अचानक नहीं, it is agreed upon. Now that is going to buy you time to, take care of any stuck ballast. If you, without announcing, if you say that you want to carry out draft survey, of course, it is going to raise eyebrows. People are going to object to it. But if it is already been agreed upon in the approved loading plan, then there is no concern. क्योंकि ये तो था पहले से ही था, प्लान था. Get my point, Chetan?
Yes sir. Yes sir, I got your point.
नहीं, आपकी आवाज कम आ रही है. Get closer to the mic, please.
Sir, I got your point sir.
Okay, okay.
सर लोडिंग सीक्वेंस में अगर पोर्स का नंबर बढ़ा देंगे तो भी तो हमें टाइम मिल जाएगा ना सर एक्स्ट्रा.
तो वो पहले से होना चाहिए.
हाँ सर, मतलब अब हमने ड्राफ्ट सर्वे तो सर पहले से ही फिक्सअप किया था ना, तो हम वो भी
Right.
उसमें मतलब जस्ट टू बाय टाइम वी कैन इंक्रीज द पोर्ट नंबर्स ना.
But that should be incorporated while you are drawing the loading plan.
Yes sir, that will be incorporated in that only.
सर क्या बढ़ा देंगे ऋषभ सर, क्या कह रहे हैं आप?
He is making a point to agree upon the number of pores. He is increasing the number of pores. I will come to it. Not a very good idea, but he says you increase the number of pores. Let us say full 9 hatch ship they want to do in, let us say 15 pores, 15 बार में. But he is trying to say कि number of pores बढ़ा दो. मतलब instead of loading in 15 pores, make it 18 or 20. So now the loading chute has to shift in between. That is going to get him time to deblast. This is what he's saying, isn't it, Rishabh? This is what you meant?
Yes sir.
बट सर उससे कितना टाइम मिलेगा? अभी तो हमारा आधा रेट है ऑलमोस्ट. लाइक अगर 30 घंटे का लोडिंग ऑपरेशन है, सॉरी अगर 30 घंटे का ब्लास्टिंग ऑपरेशन है और 15 घंटे का लोडिंग ऑपरेशन है, हाफ रेट है, तो 15 घंटे कैसे एडजस्ट होंगे उसमें सर? अगर इवन इफ वी इंक्रीज
As it is, what he's telling, the number of pores, इसमें भी एक issue है. You
हाँ
see,
जी सर.
the more number of pores you have, which means more shifting of the chute.
Yes,
More
sir.
shifting of the chute is going to cost money. No, money how? By wharfage, by increasing the port stay. So many charterers, many cargo owners may not agree to that.
सर वन
हाँ,
क्वेश्चन, अभी ये जो नंबर ऑफ पोर्ट्स की बात कर रहे हैं सर, मैं इस चीज़ को समझा नहीं, ये कौन से टाइप के लोडर की बात कर रहे हैं? जो फिक्स्ड रहता है वो वाला, एक सर लोडर होता है
चेतन
ना जो
भाई,
मूवेबल होते हैं सर?
चेतन भाई उसमें वो है जो अपन सीक्वेंस होता है ना, तो अपन 15 बार में 9 होल्ड
अच्छा
को लोड
हाँ,
कर रहे हैं।
अच्छा हाँ, ठीक
अब
है कि
अपन उसको
यहाँ
20
करो
बार में
यहाँ
कर
करो, ठीक,
हाँ,
अच्छा
ऐसे
अच्छा, उसको
शिफ्ट
कर,
करते रहेंगे होल्ड।
अच्छा शिफ्टिंग ऑफ होल्ड, ओके, शिफ्टिंग की, हाँ ये लोडर को अभी इसमें डालो, लोडर को इसमें डालो, ओके ओके
यस।
ओके।
ठीक है। अब एक मिनट रुक जाओ, मेरे पास एक इसके लिए एक और एक आर्गुमेंट है। एनीवे, पहले आप लोग बोल लो।
हो
See,
गया सर हमारा।
okay, never mind. See, the number of pores, what somebody is talking about, and to increase them is always going to be a concern. Please understand, most of the charterers and cargo owners, they want the minimum number of ports, because each time the loader has to ship, it is going to cost time, and they want the ship to stay for minimum time at wharfage. So each time you move or you want to move the loader, you're going to have an issue, because as it is, he would like, the charterer or the cargo owner would like minimum movements of the loader arm, minimum, so that time is not wasted. पहली बात, ठीक है। दूसरी बात, now the movement of the loader arm could be one thing to increase the port, and if that loader arm itself is shifted, is fixed, then what happens? You have to warp the ship itself, which you know is a huge concern. You have to warp it on drums, or maybe you can use engine storm short burst of the main engine, and then you have to warp the vessel alongside. Now that is a tedious process. So if you are increasing for a fixed loader, if you are increasing the number of ports, that means every 3 hours, 4 hours, you have to warp the vessel. So you are creating problem for yourself. You have to go on stations every 4-5 hours, warp the vessel forward enough, and then place it again underneath the cargo hold which you want to be loaded. You get it underneath the loader, because loader is fixed, which is very common in ports like USA. वहाँ तो जेटी भी लकड़ी की बनी हुई है.
Yes, sir.
So
On my last ship, I have done the port of Mo i Rana, Norway. There is fixed loader, and every time you have to move the ship. So for loading like 60,000 tons or 70,000 tons of the cargo, we have shifted like 9 times or 10 times forward and aft. But it's way better than the getting off hired, na?
नहीं, आप बात नहीं समझे. ये कहाँ से बात शुरू हुई थी? To gain time to deblast. तो किसी का
When I'm doing shifting, my deballasting can continue, na? There's no concern with the deballasting.
Can continue. It can continue.
बट सर कुछ केसेस में वो ऐसे वॉर शिफ्ट करने के लिए कोई कहते हैं कि पायलट को आना जरूरी है, या मतलब कोई ना कोई आएगा आउटसाइड, तो इफ वी कॉल द पायलट फॉर 9 टाइम्स दैट गोना कॉस्ट अ लॉट्स ऑफ मनी.
See, if you will agree with me, these things cannot be customized. They cannot be generic. It has to be customized for the load port, for whatever is the infrastructure available. You cannot say that for a bulk carrier we will do this way. No, this has to be on case-to-case basis. अगर pilot नहीं required है, maybe you can go for it. अगर warping easy है, you can go for it. If the loader arm can move, you are not supposed to warp. The loader arm can move, then you can go for it. But अगर आप ध्यान से सुन रहे हैं, and if you agree with me, so more or less, if you want to increase, for the case of deballasting only, you want to increase time at wharfage at the wharf, then one of the ways is to have an intermediate draft survey. That is going to buy you good 2 hours at least.
So that's also gonna cost money, na?
No.
Yes, sir. That's also costing money, because every time when you are doing a intermediate draft survey, show person will also come.
Gentlemen, we are not talking of frequent intermediate draft survey. Draft survey, intermediate one. एक तो draft survey होगा जब तुम arrive करोगे. You have
Yes,
initial.
sir. Initial, intermediate, and final, sir. There are three
एक ही
types
तो हुआ,
of draft
एक ही तो
surveys.
आपने place किया intermediate.
That, I'm just saying that's also gonna cost money.
But that is approved. That is agreed upon.
Okay, sir. And for the ports and other things, because before going to the load port, we are sending the loading sequence on all the documents. So we are getting agreed on everything, na?
करेक्ट, तो आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं. देन आई थिंक आई एम मोर क्लियर. आपने पहले ही एक लोड प्लान भेजा है ना, लोडिंग सीक्वेंस भेजा है, लोड प्लान भेजा है टर्मिनल को.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है, उसमें आपने पहले ही डाला हुआ है
Yes, sir.
for a intermediate draft survey. This intermediate draft survey has not sprung up. It has not come abruptly. You have already agreed upon one. That can just buy you time, was the argument we started with. Can buy you time. उस समय वो टाइम आप यूज कर लोगे for getting hold of your debelasting अगर कहीं स्टक अप हो रहा है. And I will tell you one more thing, since I've always said academically and practically are two different things. So academically you have ordered for an intermediate draft survey in your loading plan, right? Now how you do it, you are aware कि intermediate draft survey इस समय होना है. Make sure that when you're doing that intermediate draft survey, you are trimmed by stern.
Well, sir, I have one question.
हाँ जी बोलो.
Well, as I'm sailing on bulk carriers only, and we are having intermediate draft survey on every loading. And at that point of time, we are not doing any operations on board, like no loading and no deballasting, because if you are continuously deballasting with your two pumps, then draft survey is not accurate. So when we are going for intermediate draft survey, we cannot deballast. That's the same. We are stuck on the same page again. Then we cannot deballast. That means the loading rate is still high for us.
Yeah. देखो यार, बात ऐसी है कि instead of getting stuck with ballast, it is better that you do the deballasting in the draft survey time. Although, as you rightly pointed out, it may cause some discrepancy in the draft survey itself, but that is negligible. तुमने ड्राफ्ट पढ़ने हैं चारों तरफ के, 6 ड्राफ्ट पढ़ने हैं. कितना टाइम लगेगा 6 ड्राफ्ट पढ़ने में?
तो एटलीस्ट 20 मिनट्स तो लगते ही हैं सर चीफ ऑफिसर को.
कितने? 20 मिनट्स.
यस
20 मिनट्स, ठीक है.
सर. सर नीचे जाता है बोर्ड से, ड्राफ्ट सर्वेयर आता है, उसके साथ दोनों जाके
20 मिनट रख लो. मैं नहीं मना कर रहा, 20 मिनट रख लो. अब तुम्हारा डीबलास्टिंग रेट है 2500 मेट्रिक टन यूजिंग बोथ द पंप्स.
यस सर.
2500 मेट्रिक टन पर आवर. तो 20 मिनट में कितना हो जाएगा? कितना चेंज आएगा?
नियरली 1200 टन्स
20 मिनट में 2500
1000 पकड़ लेते हैं सर. 800 to 1000.
ठीक है ना. तो as you will understand, when you're loading a ship, let us say 50,000 tonner handy size, it will not make much difference, and it is going to be less costlier than going off hire because of ballast stuck.
सर
हाँ बोलो.
सर जो मैक्सिमम रेट होती है लोडिंग की विच वी हैड सीन एट द ब्राजील आल्सो लाइक सेल्वाडोर, दैट इज अराउंड 10,000 to 14,000 टन्स पर डे. सो 24 आवर्स के अगर वो 10,000 टन या 12,000 टन भी लोड कर रहा है इतने टाइम में, तो ये तो डिफरेंस पैदा कर ही देगा कि 1 घंटे में 1000 टन का. तो 20 मिनट में, तो 20 मिनट में अगर डीबलास्टिंग हो रही है तो टाइम आपको कैसे इफेक्ट नहीं करेगा. ड्राफ्ट सर्वे के टाइम पे ऋषभ सही कह रहा है सर, मैं भी बल्क कैरियर में हूँ. चीफ ऑफिसर सारे ऑपरेशंस बंद करवा देता है. वी हैव टू मेंटेन द क्लिनोमीटर से जहाज को बस इस पे रखना होता है, क्या बोलते हैं, लिस्ट 0 रखनी पड़ती है. एंड उसके बाद आपको लेना पड़ता है और बोर्ड से जाओ कैसे भी. पर वो जब इंटरमीडिएट ड्राफ्ट सर्वे होता है तब लिस्ट भी मेंटेन होती है और कोई भी ऑपरेशन नहीं चल रहा होता, ना लोडिंग ना डिस्चार्जिंग ना आपका बलास्टिंग ना डीबलास्टिंग. एंड इसका एक और एग्जांपल बता दूं जो आप अभी बता रहे थे सर, मेलबर्न में जब जहाज शिफ्ट होता है, जब आप ग्रेन लोड करते हो, क्योंकि वहाँ पे सारे कन्वेयर बेल्ट है, यू हैव टू शिफ्ट, दे हैव अ आर्क ऑफ अ क्रेन व्हिच कैन गो अप टू द 5 होल्स ओनली, आफ्टर दैट 4 होल्स ओनली, अप टू दैट देन यू हैव टू मूव योर शिप. तो वहाँ भी जब सर्वे होता है या आप 2 ग्रेड के कार्गो जैसे 2 फर्टिलाइजर एनपीएस और एक और कोई फर्टिलाइजर एक साथ पोटैश एमओपी लोड कर रहे हो तो भी इंटरमीडिएट होता है,
म्यूरेट ऑफ पोटैश होता है या
और एनपीएस नाइट्रोजन फॉस्फेट,
ओके
है ना. तो तब भी इंटरमीडिएट के सर्वे मैंने तो इस जहाज पे भी 4 बार किए तो वो नो बलास्टिंग नो डीबलास्टिंग कोई ऑपरेशन नहीं होता जहां तक मैंने देखा. मे बी आई एम रॉन्ग पर होता तो यही है सर.
वेल एक्चुअली स्पीकिंग यू आर राइट। अगर आप करेक्टली करना चाहते हो तो नहीं होना चाहिए। नो ऑपरेशन शुड बी ऑन इफ यू आर डूइंग अ ड्राफ्ट सर्वे, इफ यू वांट अ करेक्ट ड्राफ्ट सर्वे डन।
इवन सर जो बंकर रिसीव कर रहे होते हैं तो ड्राफ्ट सर्वेयर आता है, जैसे सिंगापुर में आप बंकर रिसीव किया तो उसके साथ में लोडिंग डिस्चार्जिंग आपकी पोर्ट इसमें एंकरेज पे चल रही है, ये टर्मिनल कौन सा है वो, सी वाले में, सी या बी में, तो उसमें भी वो मना कर देते हैं कि आपकी बंकरिंग ऑपरेशन हो जान दो फिर। और बंकरिंग की रेट तो बहुत स्लो होती है एज कम्पेयर टू डीबलास्टिंग बलास्टिंग से। तो
वो तो नॉर्मल साउंडिंग के लिए भी बंद कर देते हैं सर, कुछ भी पानी बंद करो पहले।
ठीक है, यू आर राइट। करेक्टली स्पीकिंग तो अगर आप ड्राफ्ट सर्वे कर रहे हो तो एवरी ऑपरेशन शुड स्टॉप। बाकी किसी ने मेंशन किया था लिस्ट को, कि लिस्ट को अपराइट कर दो, ठीक है, ये जरूरी नहीं है, बिकॉज देयर इज लिस्ट करेक्शन इंक्लूडेड इन द ड्राफ्ट सर्वे। अगर वो लिस्ट करेक्शन आप लगा रहे हैं, ऑफ कोर्स लिस्ट इज नॉट गोइंग टू बी 10 डिग्रीज।
नो सर दैट्स ओके, वो तो इसलिए खुद के फिजिबिलिटी के लिए करते हैं कि फालतू करेक्शन क्यों लगानी पड़े लिस्ट की, वरना अगर जीरो होगा तो फिर आपको वो करेक्शन नहीं लगाना पड़ेगा ना, मीन ड्राफ्ट फॉरवर्ड और आपका दोनों पोर्ट स्टारबोर्ड का बराबर हो जाएगा ना। वो तो खुद की फिजिबिलिटी के लिए चीफ ऑफिसर करवाता है, वरना तो एरर तो निकाल के भी कर सकता है, उसमें क्या फर्क पड़ रहा है।
हाँ, लिस्ट करेक्शन का फंडा लग सकता है, दैट इज द माइनर कंसर्न।
तो फिर हम हाई लोडिंग रेट को कैसे कंपनसेट करें?
हाई लोडिंग रेट,
हाँ सर, कैसे कंपनसेट करें इसको? क्योंकि डी वाला सर, अगर इंटरमीडिएट ड्राफ्ट सर्वे की बात करें तो सर उसमें तो हम कोई ऑपरेशन करते नहीं है या कर नहीं सकते, तो दूसरा कोई ऑप्शन सर?
ऐसे क्योंकि
दूसरा
यही
option-
टॉपिक चल रहा था ना सर, यही टॉपिक चल रहा था ना कि बीच में इंटरमीडिएट ड्राफ्ट सर्वे डाल दे तो लोडिंग रेट को अपना कर सकते हैं एडजस्ट।
लोडिंग रेट
लोडिंग
अपन
रेट को नहीं कर सकते।
नहीं, मीन्स टू से सर लोडिंग रेट तो वही है, अपना ब्लास्ट एडजस्ट करना है, इंटरमीडिएट डाल देंगे तो ब्लास्ट एडजस्ट करने का टाइम मिल जाएगा। बट ड्राफ्ट
नॉर्मली बलास्ट तो खाली करके ही आते हैं, जब एक
अरे
दो
नहीं, वो
टैंक ही
नहीं,
रखते हैं,
बीच
4
बीच
पीक
की
और
बात
हाफ
करें,
पीक।
बीच में बात करें ना कि लोडिंग रेट हाई चल रहा है, डीबलास्टिंग रेट तुम्हारा कम है, तो
लोडिंग
adjust
रेट
करने-
पहले से डिसाइडेड होता है, वो अपन भी बोलते हैं कि हमें इतना ही चाहिए, ऐसा नहीं होता कि वो बोल दे कि हमें 15,000 है तो और हम बोल दें कि 10,000
अरे
करना है।
वो तो है, ठीक है,
हाँ।
बट ये थोड़ी ना बोलेगा वो 12,000 बोलेगा तो बोलेगी नहीं मेरा डीबलास्टिंग 2,500 है तो मैं 2,500 पे आ जाऊंगा।
एक मिनट, अगर तुमने ये बोल दिया देन यू आर अ गॉनर। अगर तुमने ये बोल दिया कि नहीं साहब ये लोडिंग रेट एक्सेप्टेबल इसलिए नहीं है क्योंकि मेरा डीबलास्टिंग रेट इतना है, देन यू आर ऑफ कोर्स इन डीप ट्रबल।
सर नॉर्मली टैंक्स को फिल ही नहीं रखते,
डीबलास्ट तो
4 पीक और वो रखते हैं, बाकी तो वैसे
डीबलास्ट तो सर वैसे भी हम लोग जो मतलब जाते हैं तो ये बात तो सही है कि हाँ हम ऑलरेडी कम कर लेते हैं। और वैसे भी सर कंपैरिजन अगर किया जाए तो कार्गो क्वांटिटी जो लोड करने वाले हैं और जो बेलास्ट वाटर हमारे ऑन बोर्ड है, उन दोनों की क्वांटिटी में बहुत फर्क है।
ओके,
तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल हमारे पास हाफ मार्जिन तो वहीं पे आ जाता है। एंड सेकेंडरी की, हाँ जैसे शिवन ने बोला कि शिवांग ने, कि हम ऑलरेडी उसको कम करके जाते हैं जब जहाँ हमें पता होता है कि यहाँ पे ज़्यादा हाई रेट है हमारे एक पंप की कैपेसिटी से, तो हमें ऑलरेडी इंस्ट्रक्शंस होते हैं कि हम पहले से अपना बेलास्टिंग जितना है वो सब निकाल जाएं, जो मिनिमम बेलास्ट रिक्वायर्ड है वही रखें बर्थिंग के लिए।
वो जो मिनिमम बेलास्ट की आप बात कर रहे हैं उसका फैक्टर क्या होगा? व्हाट इज इट इज गोइंग टू बी प्लेड अपॉन? क्या चीज डिटरमिन करेगी
सर
मिनिमम?
जीएम वेसल का जीएम ज्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए नीचे, उस पर डिपेंड करेगा कि आप बलास्ट कितना रख लो, स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ द वेसल।
नो, ये एक चीज है, लेकिन आपका एयर ड्राफ्ट since you have worked on bulk carriers, I think you can follow what I'm saying. Air draft,
Yes sir.
have you heard of the term air draft?
Yes sir, we are maintaining air draft.
हाँ,
है एक
खूब
मिनट,
मेंटेन भी किया है सर।
नहीं बात नहीं समझ रहा यार। मैं कह रहा हूँ कि मिनिमम आप बेलास्ट लेके आओगे, मैंने मान लिया, लेकिन उसके लिए आपको एयर ड्राफ्ट को देखना पड़ेगा। मतलब ये आपका लोडर आर्म है, दिस इज योर लोडर आर्म, ऐसे आ रहा है, यहाँ से लोडिंग कर रहे हो आप, दिस इज द लोडर आर्म। नाउ दिस इज द लोडर आर्म एंड दिस इज योर वेसल, सो यू हैव टू मेंटेन सर्टन एयर ड्राफ्ट ताकि ये लोडर आर्म किसी चीज़ को टच ना करे। अगर आप सब कुछ खाली करके आओगे तो मे बी इट इज गोइंग टू टच योर हैंड रेल्स, योर शिप साइड रेल्स,
बट
और
सर
मे बी
हम सर जब बेलास्ट निकालते हैं टू गेट इनसाइड द पोर्ट, हम एयर ड्राफ्ट को ऑलरेडी कंसीडर करके निकालते हैं।
भैया ये कह
हमारे
रहा है
पास ऑलरेडी एक सर्टेन रिक्वायरमेंट होती है कि हाँ जैसे लाइक हैच नंबर 3 जो फर्स्ट लोडिंग हैच है उससे 15 मीटर का कंप्लीट हुआ है, तो अपन को उससे 15 मीटर से ऊपर नहीं जाना चाहिए उसका।
हाँ
अब उसको तो हम सर मेंटेन करके चल रहे हैं,
ठीक है, तो फिर कहाँ
ठीक
इशू
है।
है? अगर
सवाल
आपने
ये
वो
था
देख लिया,
सर,
अगर
सवाल
if you
ये
have
है
considered,
सवाल तो लोडिंग रेट की चल रही
सर,
थी,
सवाल ये है
एयरक्राफ्ट
कि
तो
जब हम पोर्ट में
हाँ ये
पहुंच गए,
मतलब उसके
हम पोर्ट
बाद
में
की बात है
पहुंच
सर।
चुके हैं, बाकी सब कुछ तो बाहर कर लिया सर, अभी हम पोर्ट में पहुंच चुके हैं, जेटी पे लग चुका है शिप, अभी लोडिंग स्टार्ट हो गई है। अब
हाँ।
सर जब मैं ऑलरेडी एक प्लान पे उनसे एग्री कर चुका था, जो मैंने उनको लोडिंग प्लान भेजा था उसे मैं एग्री कर चुका हूँ, अब मैं उस लोडिंग रेट को अभी भी मेरे पंप के हिसाब से, जस्ट अज्यूमिंग कि मेरा पंप काम नहीं कर रहा है या मेरे वॉल्व्स काम नहीं कर रहे हैं, बल्क कैरियर सर ये काफी बार होता है कि सक्शन नहीं ले रहा है, प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, स्ट्रिपिंग नहीं हो पा रही है, तो उस कंडीशन में हाउ आई एम गोइंग टू कंट्रोल द हाई लोडिंग रेट सर?
you cannot, you
सर
cannot
व्हाट कैन आई डू इन दैट सिचुएशन?
declare it that you have given up, तुम्हारा blasting rate मैच नहीं कर पा रहा, go off
देन
hire,
तो सर हम देन तो सर हम फर्स्ट सिचुएशन पे आए गए ऑफ फायर।
and that is it. या फिर थोड़ा स्मार्ट प्ले करो, इंटरमीडिएट ड्राफ्ट सर्वे डाल दो एंड फॉरगेट अबाउट डीबलास्टिंग ऑपरेशन टू बी स्टॉप, करो डीबलास्टिंग इवन व्हेन द ड्राफ्ट सर्वे इज गोइंग ऑन.
Sir, but nowadays many of the ports does not allow the deballasting operation in their port area. At what that time, what should we do?
Go out,
अगर
deblast.
अगर सर ड्यूरिंग ड्राफ्ट सर्वे ही कम्स टू नो दैट वी आर डीबलास्टिंग, देन वी आर इन डी प्रॉब्लम सर.
हाँ जी,
छोड़
एक एक करके
दो
लेट्स
सर.
गो वन बाय वन. आप बोलिए
Yes,
पहले क्या बोलते हैं, से व्हाट यू आर सेइंग.
सर अभी जब हमने डिस्कशन स्टार्ट किया था, तो मेन टॉपिक जो था वो ये था सर कि हाई लोडिंग रेट की वजह से हमारा बेलास्टिंग रेट जो डीबेलास्टिंग रेट जो है उस पे कैसे इफेक्ट आएगा, कि उसको हम बढ़ा तो नहीं सकते हैं, तो हम लोडिंग रेट को कम करने मतलब कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं, या टाइम फ्रेम हाथ में रख सकते हैं, हमें टाइम और
अच्छा
चाहिए हाथ में
अच्छा
रखने
अच्छा
के
अच्छा,
लिए।
ओके. अब एक
अभी
मिनट सुनोगे,
फिर उसमें
एक मिनट
हमने
एक मिनट, जस्ट
जी
होल्ड
सर,
ऑन, जस्ट होल्ड
यस
ऑन.
यस यस
ये टॉपिक ऑफ डिस्कशन नहीं था बॉस. टॉपिक ऑफ डिस्कशन ये था कि अगर तुम्हारा लोडिंग रेट हाई है और डीबलास्टिंग मैच नहीं कर रही है, देन यू कैन हैव ओवर स्ट्रेसिंग ऑफ द शिप. ये टॉपिक था.
नहीं सर, उसके बाद यही टॉपिक चल रहा था ना कि हम उसको कंट्रोल कैसे करें।
आप
कर
लोडिंग
लेंगे
कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते हो.
सर। सर
हाँ जी बोलिए.
हाँ सर, बट ये अभी जो बात हो रही है वो स्पेशली बल्क कैरियर की हो रही है, फिर ये जनरल लाइक, क्योंकि टैंकर पे हम लोग जो भी लोडिंग रेट वगैरह बताते हो, हम लोग अपना डीबलास्टिंग को मतलब इन हैंड लेके बताते, जो हमारी रेट रहती है उसी के हिसाब से।
ठीक है, ऐसा ही यहाँ पे भी करना है आपने. ऑपरेशन के तौर पे दिस योर लोडिंग प्लान शुड टेक इनटू अकाउंट योर डीबलास्टिंग रेट आल्सो एंड सीक्वेंस. लोडिंग प्लान आप बनाओगे उसी हिसाब से, यू आर अवेयर ऑफ योर बेलास्टिंग डीबलास्टिंग कैपेसिटी, पंप कैपेसिटी, उसके हिसाब से बनाओगे तुम.
ठीक है सर.
But if it is
हाँ
not
सर, तो
matching,
फिर
which was our discussion, if it is not matching, unsynchronized है loading or debelasting rate, then you can cause hull structure to be overloaded or stresses. ये था topic of discussion. Unsynchronized loading rate and debelasting sequence or rate can lead to a potential problem of hull stress. Together with that, इसके साथ ही in the same light, if the ballast distribution and cargo distribution is asymmetric, मतलब आपने केयर नहीं, you have not taken care कि कार्गो पोरिंग किस हैच में हो रही है, उसके नीचे वाला डीबी खाली हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है, asymmetric, then also you are going to cause severe hull stresses. If you have not synchronized cargo and ballast distribution. So not only that, you have to trim whatever cargo, especially high density cargo is being loaded. You have to also make sure कि तुम्हारा ballast distribution उसके लिए correct है. So very simply put, जिस cargo hold में आप load कर रहे हो उसके नीचे वाला डीबी को आपने खाली करना ही करना है. To avoid overstressing of that particular girder or frame. And of course, this is talking about stresses resulting from asymmetrical cargo distribution. एक ही जगह पे pile up कर दिया towards one corner, this side shell is getting affected and like this. तो इसके लिए तो एक ही तरीका है, you have to stop for trimming. Then next potential problem has been recognized as lack of effective ship-shore communication. You are aware that on bulk carriers also you have a ship-shore checklist, just like ISGOT में टैंकर की है, ऐसी bulk carrier में भी होती है ship-shore checklist. उसके अंदर ये पहले डिसाइडेड होता है that what is the going to the means of ship-shore communication. Communication is very important so that it can adjust, anything can be adjusted, list can be always under control, and this can be avoided, overstressing, etc. Now this also has been recognized as a potential problem, lack of effective ship-shore communication. And of course, exceeding load line marks, if it happens like this. Load line marks should not be submerged, goes without saying, you are well aware of that. You cannot submerge load line marks. That is why load line marks have been marked, so that you can keep them under control. You cannot submerge them.
सर ये जो लोड लाइन मार्क्स होते हैं इट इज एप्लीकेबल टू ओशन और कैनल आल्सो.
लोड लाइन मार्क्स जो होते हैं, इसके आगे नहीं मिला.
सर इट इज एप्लीकेबल टू चैनल्स और कैनाल्स आल्सो और टू ओशंस ओनली.
Load line marks,
यस सर.
they are applicable to any zone you are loading in.
नहीं जोन में मैं कैनाल पे पूछ रहा हूँ सर. अगर पर्टिकुलर रिवर में लोड कर रहे हैं इट इज एप्लीकेबल टू रिवर आल्सो या वहाँ पे.
Why not? रिवर है, as you are saying रिवर है, तो उस रिवर की वाटर डेंसिटी क्या है?
आगे तो समझ आ गया, बस यही डाउट था कि मेरे को लगा कि ओशन गोइंग पे एप्लीकेबल है.
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. जोन में एप्लीकेबल है, इन वट एवर जोन यू आर लोडिंग.
ठीक है सर.
समर जोन है, विंटर जोन है, ट्रॉपिकल जोन है, फ्रेश वाटर जोन है, किस जोन में है उसके अकॉर्डिंगली लोड लाइन मार्क्ड है. बट ऑफ कोर्स इफ द डेंसिटी ऑफ वाटर इज डिफरेंट देन द ओशन व्हिच इज 1.025, देन यू कैन सबमर्ज बाय दैट मच, व्हिच इज कॉल्ड व्हाट? इफ इट इज फ्रेश वाटर इट इज कॉल्ड फ्रेश वाटर अलाउंस, इफ इट इज डॉक वाटर इट इज कॉल्ड DWA. उतना सबमर्ज कर सकते हो. Which of course you are well aware. If you go out at sea with that mark submerged by this much, once you reach sea and reach the density 1.025, you will reach the load line. That much submersion is allowed. तो ये एक पॉइंट है, exceeding load line marks is not allowed at all. This can cause.
सर अभी आपने क्या बोला? वो सर थोड़ा नेटवर्क चला गया था. अभी क्या बोला सर आपने? रिपीट करेंगे प्लीज.
Let somebody else do it यार. मैं तो एक फ्लो में चलता जाता हूँ. I don't remember. I think we were talking of load line marks.
Yes sir, just now you have मतलब आपने कुछ बोला, तो क्या बोला सर आपने अभी ये लोड लाइन को लेकर?
हाँ, लोड लाइन marks should not be submerged, cannot be submerged. फिर एक सवाल उठ रहा था किसी से कि अगर ये सिर्फ ओशन में वैलिड है लोड लाइन मार्क या रिवर में भी है. फिर मैंने पूछा था कि जिस रिवर की तुम बात कर रहे हो उसकी डेंसिटी क्या है. अगर वो डेंसिटी फ्रेश वाटर है तो FWA लग सकता है, फ्रेश वाटर अलाउंस, यू कैन समझ बाय दैट मच. अगर वो डॉक वाटर है 1.017 है लेटर से, ठीक है, तो दैट मच यू कैन इमर्स. ये बात हो रही थी.
ओके ओके.
But on the whole, if you exceed load line marks or you submerge, then what you are doing is causing stresses which are going beyond the allowable limits. Now, what happens is that sailing out with partly filled holds is not really allowed. Yeah, if it is allowed, it should be mentioned in the approved loading manual. Normally, it is not allowed. But if the loading manual approves that you can load partially filled, if it is allowed, then of course you can do it. Then there are other problems regarding this because this will be marked on your ship side. If there is a discrepancy, it will be marked on your ship side. What is allowed and what is not allowed. चलो कोई बात नहीं. We are going to continue. Inadequate cargo weight measurement. Number 8. Structural damage due to cargo handling. Yeah. ऐसे चलते हैं. ये हमने देखा था. We can go over it again, no problem. Okay. What we do, candidates, is we take a small break, Kit Kat, and come back and meet at 15:45 to resume. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
We will resume at 15:45. ठीक है जी.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
ओके जी. So to continue, next point is about inadequate cargo weight measurement during loading, which means whatever cargo is being loaded, inaccurate weighing. This can also increase stress levels. It is important to determine cargo weight loaded in each pore. Very important. Otherwise, this can, vary the loading rate, whatever is given to you, which can happen because declared could be something and practically being achieved could be something. This can be a cause of potential structure failure. Not good measurement done during loading, cargo weight measurement.
ये 7 पॉइंट कौन सा था, एक बार ऊपर दिखाना।
Yeah, this is where you wanted.
हाँ सर, ठीक है सर।
Okay. This one is only talking about partially filled ballast tanks or holes in which you are taking ballast. When it is partially filled, due to the motion of the vessel, it can slosh inside. That can increase pressure on the tank boundaries. Ultimately, it will damage the internal structure. This is number 0.7.
हो गया सर, हो गया।
Now, obviously, if there is inadequate or inaccurate measurements, this can lead to local stress. Tank top stress could be exceeded because the estimate, I'm using the word estimate, of the cargo loaded is not correct. One minute, just give me a minute. I'll come back to it. Page 7. Are you aware of this? IACS, International Association of Classification Societies. You must have heard of it. Each class is a party to it. Each class is a member of this. What I came to this was to insist that we are reading a write-up from IACS. The source of information is IACS. So with that in view, have a look at this. High loading rate ports can suitably, cause problem. Without suitably positioned cargo, weighing equipment, ship's cargo officer should request terminal to stop loading to allow draft surveys and displacement calculations to verify compliance with the agreed loading plan. So what we are talking about is not something unusual. If you are stopping for an intermediate draft survey, this is also recognized by association like IACS. They also agree to it. To verify that compliance is being done with the agreed loading plan. It could be necessary to stop also. See, for the purpose of safety of vessel, you can stop. But of course, there is going to be problem like off hires. But if you got a very good reason and you can prove that you have done this because loading rates are not matching, agreed loading plan is not being adhered to, then you can be absolved from off hire also. Because you're proving that you have stopped because of some good reason. So it is considered to have suitably positioned weighing equipment, which could be weighing scales underneath the conveyor belts, to be installed, especially when we are looking at very high loading rates. Now, as the loading plan is being discussed with the terminal and agreed upon, one thing is definite. The terminal should inform the ship that how much cargo will remain on conveyor belt that has to go in, even after a loading has been put to stop. The amount of cargo on the conveyor belt at any given instant which has to go in. It cannot be left on the conveyor belt. That is also agreed upon. So much cargo will necessarily have to be loaded even after the vessel has put a stop to it. This is also agreed upon. This is also known to both the parties, terminal as well as the vessel. Then, structural damage caused due to improper handling, impact loads like grabs, hydraulic hammers, and damaging cargo coating hold protection. This is also a potential problem. Structural damage due to improper cargo handling equipment or grabs, for example. This is where it affects them. The side shell, the hopper plate, tank top, and can lead into harming the DB also. Impact of grabs, impact of excavators, forklifts, all this can cause harm to the structure. The coating you have applied to the cargo hold, uh, bulkheads, side shells is also vulnerable due to corrosion, temperature, or abrasive action of cargo itself like coal, which can have a corrosive action on the coating. Once the coating breaks down, then it is vulnerable to structural failure because corrosion can set in and then it can cause weakness of the material itself. One thing is very definite practically, which you will keep in mind as you officer, on completion of cargo discharge, it should be inspected. Cargo holds, tech areas should be inspected for mechanical, corrosive, or coating damage. To arrest the damage, it is necessary to know it. So, examination should be done after completion of each discharge. And of course, it will follow up by distributor damage reports, repairs, etc. Of course, we have seen this part. No harm in having a look again. It is giving the idea about the cross section through a hold and which all parts can get damaged. It is labeled also A tank top, B side hopper, C corrugated bulkhead, transverse bulkhead running from port to starboard, E side shells, side shell plating, side shell frames, and of course the DB tanks bottom. Loads, hull structure, design, not to be exceeded. We have come to a conclusion for that also. Ocean going stresses we are taking into account for safety margin, and this should not be exceeded. You can have an issue, not really for the failure of the structure, but you know, liquefaction of the cargo. Cargo susceptible to liquefy, listed in the IMSBC, can cause a concern because if transported in moisture content excess of transportable moisture limit TML, then if it liquefies, it is going to increase the pressure on the cargo boundaries, and of course, leading to capsizing moment. Permissible still water shear forces SWSF and permissible still water bending moments. These values, of course, cannot be exceeded. Two sets are given, which we have talked about seagoing and harbor. But we also came to a conclusion by our discussion, which is correct, that normally, although you are calculating for harbor also, so that you can prove to anybody if inspecting that you are maintaining so and so condition in harbor going, but sea going is the one which you should always take into account for use at sea. Just in case you are told to go out, you should be able to. You should be always prepared to leave for sea at any given time. Each bulk carrier of over 150 meter in length and above is to be provided with a local loading criteria, which will define maximum allowable cargo limit for each hold and for each pair of adjacent holds, block hold loading, for various draft conditions and displacement. localized stresses. This is block loading, adjacent holds. But of course, this can be only done if permitted by the loading manual. Not all ships are permitted. This is called block loading. Two holds, two holds. Allowed if it is permitted by the approved loading manual. What is this going to lead to? Just by the figure, just by the look of it. What kind of stress? This is empty or lesser weight. Buoyancy thrust acting upwards. This is increasing. This is acting upwards. So you have what is called like this. ऐसे ग्राफ बनेगा इसका. What can this lead to? Or what kind of stress is this pointing out to? Okay, maybe based on which SFBM नहीं है, they will ask, right? But anyway, you should be aware. This is what is going to lead to what is called excessive shear force. अगर इसका एक वो बनेगा, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, ग्राफ अगर एक बनेगा तो it will go like this. When plotted on a x and y axis, it will lead to something like this. Yeah. अच्छा, ये JPG इमेज है. No, something like this. This is called shear force. While here, what you are showing is excessive bending moments. Ends are empty, middle part is loaded. So you have a bending moment. Again, bending, producing hogging effect because middle part is empty. So drafts here are more, but in the center, it is producing a hogging effect. Of course, things to be kept in mind as you go, sir, when you're planning the loading part. Sometimes it is not avoidable due to the configuration of the terminal or maybe because of the ballast water distribution. Best method is to have a homogeneous hull loading, which is cargo evenly distributed in all holes. This cannot be beaten. This is the best way, which is very much in place for low density cargoes like coal and grain. Low density cargo like coal and grain, the best way is to distribute the cargo evenly in all holes, which is called homogeneous hole loading. Or you could have a system where you do alternate hole loading. In this one, let us say, for example, odd number holes 1, 3, 5, and 7 are loaded, while the remaining holes are designed and designated to be empty. But by odd numbered holes already loaded, the vessel is reaching the maximum draft. Or you could have what is called block hole loading, refers to cargo in a block of 2 or more adjoining holes. with holes adjacent to such blocks empty. But this is only part loading. Then of course there are various other conditions to be employed as per the code, bulk carrier code, but not really leading to damages, which we are interested in right now. Homogeneous, all loaded. Alternate and block hold. Number 3. Then loading manual, which you are familiar with, is the one which gives you and assists you for planning cargo loading. Then of course this is a mandatory thing, loading instrument or loadicator, which complements the loading manual. It is a tool used for assisting during loading and discharging, of course. The loading manual will give you all these things. Design loading conditions, part bunkers, full bunkers, part ballast, full ballast for ballast passages, permissible still water forces, bending moments, allowable and minimum required mass of cargo. All this is contained in the approved loading manual. अच्छा एक बात और है, maybe it is not mentioned here or I missed out. Let me see. One more thing is there for damage to bulk carrier, which is called inappropriate or unconcerned, uncalculated ballast water exchange. That can also lead to damage. Out of that, ballast water exchange not done as per the ballast water manual or the ballast water management plan BWMP, that can also lead to structural failure. Ballast water management plan not followed. You can add it. You are carrying out a ballast water exchange, but you are not following the plan, which is customized for that particular vessel. Then also you can have structural damages. In fact, the whole purpose of having a ballast water exchange manual BWMP is for prevention of any damage to the structure. You refer to the plan, you follow the plan, and then you minimize any structural damage due to exchange of ballast. As you exchange ballast, you will agree you set in motion a lot of stresses, especially if you are doing a ballast water exchange, which you have to do for end compartments and bulkhead and tanks. Then a lot of bending moments are caused. As far as the loading manual is concerned, that is okay. And then you have the loading instrument. So this is also a necessary thing by SOLAS. SOLAS chapter 12, that is steps to enhance bulk carrier safety. Regulation 11. Bulk carriers of 150 meter in length and above shall be fitted with a loading instrument capable of providing information on hull girder, shear forces and bending moments. That is what is required for loading instrument or loading getter. So you can say this is a prevention of structural failure. अगर आपके पास लोडिकेटर है, approved लोडिकेटर. We had said inadequate ship-to-shore communication is an issue and can cause damage because this is going to prevent any failure of communication, which is to be before and during cargo operation, monitoring of stevedoring, monitoring ship condition, checking hull damage. BLU code, which is now part of IMSBC, is providing for the provisions. You see, BLU code previously was a dedicated instrument themselves, dedicated code, but now it is part of the IMSBC. Just like is what talks about a tanker ship shore checklist, the BLU code IMSBC talks about a bulk carrier ship shore checklist. Much information is provided by the terminal to the bulk carrier coming in, and of course the bulk carrier reciprocates that with information regarding the vessel. Information exchange is done so that each party is aware of what is required. See, this kind of information should be provided by the terminal, and if not done, then the ship should ask for it. This one. Cargo characteristics, amounts and properties, availability of any special requirement, characteristics of loading and unloading equipment, number, range of movement and loading and unloading rates, depth of water alongside, water density, air draft restrictions, maximum sailing draft and minimum draft for safe maneuvering, conveyor belt delivery amount after stop has been given, terminal requirement for moving ship. All this is very much essential to make sure that information is correctly exchanged. If you see the things we were talking about, number, range of movement, which we are talking of movement of the loader, loading and unloading rates, depth of water alongside, water density, maximum sailing draft, conveyor belt delivery amount beyond ship stoppage. Once the ship says to stop, how much is the belt is going to definitely load before it can stop. Right? Very essential. Says goes without saying actually. Hull stress limits should be kept below permissible limits at all times. Then of course the communication part, agreed procedures to stop cargo operation and exchange of information, who is responsible for cargo in terminal, and of course the ship's officer responsible. और आज के टाइम में तो आई थिंक इवन मोबाइल नंबर्स कुड बी एक्सचेंज. कर रहे हो क्या ऐसा? मोबाइल नंबर्स exchange with terminal, apart from the fact that you may have a dedicated radio?
No, sir.
Not exchanging? Why not? What is
सर
harm?
सीधा फोन एक्सचेंज हो जाता है आजकल, फोन मिलता है, फोन उनके से छोटा सा है।
नहीं सर, नंबर नहीं एक्सचेंज करते।
नहीं करते?
नहीं सर।
सर मोबाइल मिलता है छोटा सा।
हाँ, मेरा कहना ये है कि नॉर्मल तरीका क्या है कि you have a dedicated radio which you exchange on an agreed channel, VHF, I mean channel number 06, 08 or whatever. But instead of that, why can't we have mobile phones? आजकल सबके पास है.
सेफ्टी कंसर्न होता है ना, सेफ्टी कंसर्न, वो अप्रूव्ड मोबाइल फोन्स होते हैं ना सर, जो वो भी लेके आते हैं टर्मिनल पे। ऐसा टैंकर वाल में तो ऐसे ही होता है सर।
टैंकर में चलो एक अलग बात हो गई ना,
हाँ,
because of
मैं
static
सर उसके तरफ से बोल
concern.
दिया, सॉरी।
Maybe mobile is not allowed at all. वो एक अलग बात हो गई. Because of static, वो allowed ही ना हो. And of course, this whole thing cannot start until loading, unloading plan and information is agreed upon and exchanged. Any amendments, if done, should be clearly informed and exchanged if there is any amendment done to the load plan. IAC says that the master has the right to suspend if he is not satisfied with the manner of working or any deviation from the agreed load plan.
एक्सक्यूज मी सर, सर ये जो लास्ट स्लाइड थी इसमें लास्ट में लिखा हुआ था ये वाली लाइन सर, वेयर all relevant procedures are agreed and the ship's master has where necessary received a certificate of readiness issued by the respective maritime authorities. ऊपर सर, हाँ ये वाला सर
यहाँ पे ओके.
तो सर ये नोटिस ऑफ रेडीनेस और ये सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ रेडीनेस ये दोनों डिफरेंट हैं या सेम है?
डिफरेंट है, एग्जैक्टली बहुत डिफरेंट है.
ओके सर,
एंटायरली डिफरेंट.
सर थोड़ा एक्सप्लेन कर देंगे?
हाँ बता रहा हूँ. Certificate of readiness for loading purpose is issued by the respective maritime authority, which could be the port control.
ओके सर।
But notice of readiness is something which the vessel submits on reaching a port, that I am ready in all respects to load, unload cargo. My vessel is ready in all respects to load and unload cargo, which obviously, whatever is the case, loading है या unloading है, that is notice of readiness, NOR. That is for commercial reasons. That is, has a commercial impact. At the time of submission of NOR, starts the calculation of lay time, starts the calculation of demurrage, dispatch, etc.
ओके, थैंक यू सर।
This one is a certificate of readiness being issued by the terminal to say that they are ready to load. And this is only done once both informations have been exchanged and the ship's master and the chief officer etc. are happy with the agreed load plan also received by the terminal. This is entirely different from NOR. देखो पोर्ट टर्मिनल सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ रेडीनेस कब देगा कि इज हैप्पी टू स्टार्ट लोडिंग और डिस्चार्जिंग व्हाटएवर द केस इज. व्हेन विल ही गिव दिस सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ रेडीनेस? जब वो देखेगा कि लोडिंग प्लान या discharge plan has been submitted by the vessel, is agreed upon, countersigned by the foreman, right? If there are any issues, they have to be addressed. Then, what about the gangway, boarding arrangement? What about the communication part, agreed channels, ये सब होने के बाद he will say or issue what is called a certificate of readiness, that is okay to load or discharge. One thing is definite, monitoring. ठीक है, सब कुछ एग्रीएबल है, सब कुछ एग्री हो गया, लोडिंग रेट डिसाइड हो गया, अनलोडिंग सीक्वेंस डिसाइड हो गया अगर ऐसा केस है, एंड everything is now in order, certificate readiness issue हो गया. But at the end of the whole thing, monitoring and controlling is important. Agreed तो है, लेकिन उसके बाद क्या हो रहा है? We have to monitor it. Loading rate is not increased beyond agreed rate, things like that. One minute, just give me a minute. Start sharing again. Okay, I'll locate it. We'll talk about it maybe in the next class, no problem. Just trying to locate something which I could talk to you. No issue. I'll do it.
सर वो आपने कल नोट्स नहीं डाले सर, वो वाले बल्क कैरियर वाले जो मैं कह रहा था सर, वाटर टाइट और वाटर टाइट वाले ना, होल्ड के प्रिपरेशन वाले, वो नहीं डाले सर आपने। सर आपने कोई 16 चैप्टर 6
एक मिनट एक
16।
मिनट एक मिनट एक मिनट। होल्ड प्रिपरेशन यू आर सेइंग?
हाँ जी हाँ जी, जो सर हमने किया था ना, वेदर टाइटनेस वाटर टाइटनेस का भी कर रहे
दैट
थे
इज
हम।
नॉट होल्ड प्रिपरेशन
नहीं
प्लीज।
सर, वो वाले भी डालने थे ना, वो नहीं डाले सर।
वेदर टाइट और वाटर टाइट में फर्क?
हाँ जी सर, वो आप नोट से पढ़ा रहे थे ना अपने, वो
अच्छा
वाले नहीं डाले थे सर आपने।
नहीं
16
है।
चैप्टर 6 डाल दिया था सिर्फ।
हाँ, वो नहीं आया आपके पास?
तो 16 चैप्टर 6 ही है सर, लेकिन वो कुछ ऐसा नहीं है ना कि लाइक पेपर में क्वेश्चन आए तो लिखने लाइक, मतलब तो रेगुलेशन है।
अच्छा ठीक है, एक मिनट रुको। ठीक है कोई बात नहीं। कहाँ चला गया? बनाया तो था एक मिनट रुको। एक सेकंड, जस्ट गिव मी अ मिनट। आर यू टॉकिंग अबाउट? एक मिनट देखना। कैन यू सी द शेयर स्क्रीन? इसी बात कर रहे हो? चेतन, वर यू टॉकिंग?
यस सर।
वर यू रेजिंग दिस वन?
हाँ जी सर, ये वाले नहीं है ना सर, ये वाले नहीं डले हुए सर, ये
ओके
नोट्स
नेवर
ना।
माइंड, बट दिस इज व्हाट यू आर लुकिंग फॉर।
हाँ जी सर।
ओके जी ओके। ओके have a look now, gentlemen. I think it should be there. Candidates should be there now. Have a look and confirm on the link, of course. मिल गया? Did you get it on the link? What you were looking for?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Do you have anything to be raised for now?
सर ये जो आज वाला है सर ये भी डालेंगे आप उसमें?
हाँ, let the topic get completed. ये भी डाल देंगे, कोई दिक्कत नहीं.
डाल दो सर ये भी.
Okay, no problem. We have another class tomorrow, I think. We can continue.
सर है सर कल क्लास
Sorry, कल है ना?
है सर है
I thought so. Yeah. Okay, we can close it out then. Meet again tomorrow. Do respond to the chat box poll for the process, and we see you tomorrow.